Everyone. So this time I prepared a speech. Interesting, as I was kind of putting it together at the end, I looked through the most recent program that came out, and I saw that Mitty had almost exactly the same title as what I had. So I had to kind of rethink everything and put it together in a different way. But so the title I chose is The Global Women's Peace Network and a New Culture of Leadership and Living. What qualities of leadership are needed in these challenging times? To answer that, we need to ask, what are the challenges of our day? Poverty, loneliness and depression, juvenile delinquency, unemployment, corruption and bad governance, low quality education and access, materialism, apathy, violence, lost childhood, substance abuse, peer pressure, and all of this accelerated by our media, the speed of the social media. The question we need to ask is, can women's leadership and more feminine attributes in governance help to prevent or solve some of these problems? Do we believe that? Why? Because if we aren't convinced about that, no one else will be either. Most of the issues we are confronting today and many of the choices we make can be traced back to the influence of parents and family. Arguably, the leadership role that has the potential to most profoundly influence the life course of another individual is that of the parent or early childhood nurturer. Is it therefore not only that feminine leadership and wisdom is needed in government policy, government policy making or corporate management, but that feminine leadership in families, especially the role of mother, must be clearly understood and protected. In some nations in Europe, the notion of mother and father is being replaced by a generic noun. Who could come to such a conclusion without anticipating the long-term dangers to our children and to the future of this world? If mothers themselves, or grateful sons and daughters who value their mother's influence, do not organize themselves and fight for what their mind, heart, and soul tells them is so critical, then who will? I have read so many autobiographies in my life of women and men that I admire. Without exception, the guidance, love, and example of parents have always played a large part in the achievements and the quality of character development of these people. There are many issues like this where the solutions seem to be worked out in a vacuum by experts who are lost in their own theories and experiments, and they keep pushing their theories further and further, but who have unfortunately lost any sense of the essential long-term priorities. Almost without the general population realizing it, over the recent decades, some of our most fundamental norms and values have been relativized. And because we've taken so long to wake up, much has already been institutionalized in our schools' curricula and policy law. For some of us, the real wake-up call is in seeing how our children have been affected by the years of trying to justify the ethical or religious values that they hear at home with the rigorous effort made to remove values in school and society. But actually, they end up by vigorously promoting confused and destructive values and behaviors. It is a very dangerous time. And the leadership that is needed is that which understands what is good and recognizes that the most perilous threats are those that attack our core value system. When things are in motion, sometimes the current seems unstoppable. Now, however, the political and social landscape seems to be shifting, and that can be good if it allows reflection and regrouping. People in the United States and in some European nations are realizing that a decision-making elite has been deciding their future without taking their real concerns to heart, and are finding strength to raise their voices and demand change. Leadership is critical in this moment. Leadership is critical in this moment, and it is a time of opportunity to appeal to the common sense and the innate goodness of people. Should we leave all this up to populist leaders who have caught the ear of the people, or should we continue to insist upon the agenda that we want? Part of our agenda for this meeting is to compare, develop, and distribute curricula counter-proposals to our confused Western value systems. Of course, we cannot all be politicians or public figures, but we are all influencers in our circles. This is a rallying call and a time for women of good conscience, concern, talent, and experience to sit together in thought and to separate the right from the wrong ideas and then to move together in action. Our strength will be in our right and in our numbers. During our Women's Federation Europe annual meeting in Prague last year, we visited the Czech Parliament. We had a chance to speak with some women parliamentarians there. During one discussion over coffee, our delegation shared some of these same ideas. Just before getting up to leave, this very reputable woman MP thanked us for giving her hope and quietly confessed that she had a similar vision and passion upon entering politics. She realized how she, as a woman, without much support in her concerns, had to compromise or reset her goals along the way and regretted it. And again, just 2 weeks ago in Zurich, Switzerland, our Women's Federation President, Goya Shaitenov, who is here today in the front row, arranged a luncheon for our Women's Federation delegation with a current Swiss parliamentarian from the Christian Democrat Party. It was a very similar experience, and we shared our vision, strategy, and some projects of Women's Federation. She told us, this parliamentarian told us that her course as a young woman politician had been very difficult. She was again just re-elected, and she seems to be very successful. Although she hadn't given up, she said sadly that she did have to give in for less so many times along the way. We listened to each other and went deeper and deeper into what we as women leaders really want to provide to our communities and what are the obstacles. Probably our most profound moments were at the end when we spoke about our children and could sense an automatic transferal of that longing for the happiness and success of our concerns and joys as parents to our concern and strategy in politics and activism. When I came home and shared this with one of my daughters and saw how she was so moved, I was reminded that it isn't just something triggered just because we give birth or that we are mothers, but something deeper about femininity and the capacity to care in a unique way, perhaps also a preparation for eventual motherhood. Nature is like that. After 20 years building up grassroots and programs and developing personal leadership skills, our Women's Federation founders gave us a new mandate in July 2012. We were asked to dare to reach out beyond our comfort zone, which probably for many of us, we don't feel we're in our comfort zone actually, but anyway, reach further with the creation of a global women's peace network. Our reach should go much further and deeper, and we should seek partnerships with like-minded women and their organizations because we need a global mobilization that would start small but become powerful. Dr. Moon often spoke to us about the dawning of the era of women and the importance for the shift from a logic of power to a logic of love. We were warned that we would see the opportunities and that we shouldn't shy away from them. I see this happening around me, at the UN, and in my local community, and even in my family. Humanity, even God, they would say, is hoping that we can rise to this occasion. Women were given their intuition for a reason, to be developed and fine-tuned the more we use it wisely. We've all experienced that raising our children or caring for those around us. I'm still in the process of helping my last two girls through their teenage woes. I have actually 7 children, and these are the last 2 girls. And as you know, it requires incredible wisdom, delicacy, concern for detail, and there is no guidebook. It is, I think many of you know, it is different in the broader, is it different in the broader sphere of governance and politics? One can sense leaders need to be able to navigate through the daily opportunities and dangers, finding the right time and the right word to convince, to mediate, to disagree, but always with concern for their constituents' well-being foremost in their mind. If women of today can catch the spark, and help one another to bring in those vital but sorely missing elements to leadership, there is a real hope for transformation, and maybe in a time much shorter than we thought. Of course, it isn't guaranteed, nor is it easy that we can cultivate such empathy, concern, willingness to sacrifice beyond our own families. But the call is here, and the opportunities seem to be growing. We received some instructions in 2012 about this vision of building up a global women's peace network. In my mind, there were 3 main points. 1, education. Protect and promote the natural goodness of youth by providing a safe environment that will prepare them to live in a culture of peace and shared prosperity, which they should be trained for in their families. Number 2, advocacy. Non-governmental organizations, especially women's, should influence governance and policy making. And that's the step beyond the comfort zone, because we've been working in the grassroots, but we have to really believe that the skills that we have developed over this effort can really also be applied in much broader spheres of influence, as well as spread awareness in society about the priorities that have been shuffled around over the recent decades. And then finally, networking. Lead by example with a paradigm of one human family in mind. Men and women have different ways of problem solving, but the starting point of shared leadership is common concern, as in a family. I see it with my husband. The moments that I feel the most love and warmth for him isn't necessarily but when I see him in action, loving others. Can we bring that love ability out in one another? My thinking is that we women, given our capacities for childbearing, nurturers, and as peacemakers, have the greater portion of responsibility to make this work. Thank you.